yokota, warami, iya yokota. Warami, mama yokota, warami, iya yokota. Warami, mama yokota, warami, iya yokota. I give thanks for my mother. For she gave me life. No child is born without struggle. And only the strong survive. What I mean, mama yokota, what I mean, iya yokota. What I mean, mama yokota, what I mean, iya yokota. What I mean, mama yokota, what I mean, iya yokota. What I mean, mama yokota, what I mean, iya yokota. Booty bam 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 boy, I put my mother first, cause her love brings me joy, yeah. Wada me, mama yoko da. Mama please feed me, sit me on your lap. Iya me ayagba, she wears the crown. She not bow for nothing, she always holds me down, yeah. Iya me, iya yoko da. You only have one, respect your mother. Wada me, mama yokota, wada me, iya yokota. 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 Alright, this one was fun. Don't forget to love and hug your mom. For she gave me life. No child is born without struggle. and only the strong survive. What I mean, mama yokota. What I mean, iya yokota. What I mean, mama yokota. What I mean, iya yokota. What I mean, mama yokota. What I mean, iya yokota. What I mean, mama yokota. What I mean, iya yokota. Booty bam 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 boy, I put my mother first, cause love brings me joy, yeah. Wada me, mama yoko da. Mama please feed me, sit me on your lap. Iya mi ayagba, she wears the crown. She not bow for nothing, she always holds me down, yeah. Iya mi, iya yoko da. You only have one, respect your mother. What I mean, mama yokota. What I mean, iya yokota. What I mean, mama yokota. What I mean, iya yokota. What I mean, mama yokota. What I mean, iya yokota. What I mean, mama yokota. What I mean, iya yokota. Alright, this one was fun. Don't forget to love and hug your mom. My mother, yeah, for she gave me life. No child is born without struggle, and only the strong survive. What I mean, mama yokota. What I mean, iya yokota. What I mean, mama yokota. What I mean, iya yokota. What I mean, mama yokota. What I mean, iya yokota. What I mean, mama yokota. What I mean, iya yokota. Booty bam 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 boy, I put my mother first, cause love brings me joy, yeah. Wada me, Mama yoko da, mama please feed me, sit me on your lap. Iya me ayagba, she wears the crown. She not bow for nothing, she always holds me down, yeah. Iya me, iya yoko da, you only have one, respect your mother. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. This one's for the king. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Daddy for the king. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. This one's for the king. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Daddy for the king. Peggy for the king. We about the king. Alright, this one was fun. Don't forget to love and hug your mom. Wada me, wada me, wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. I give thanks for my mother, yeah, for she gave me life. No child is born without struggle, and only the strong survive. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Booty bam 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 boy, I put my mother first, cause her love brings me joy, yeah. Wada me, mama yoko da, mama please feed me, sit me on your lap. Iya me ayagba, she wears the crown. She not bow for nothing, she always holds me down, yeah. Iya me, iya yoko da, you only have one, respect your mother. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, mama yoko da, wada me, iya yoko da. Wada me, Don't forget to love and hug your mom.
I'm still playing?
No, it's not. Mm-mm. This is the delay. But it's not playing.
If ain't nobody here, ain't
No, there's people here. What are you talking about? Look.
Oh, okay.
See, you're on. See, you're on. You're live.
Oh, okay. Shout out my cousin Ross.
Yeah.
You cousin now, he family. We got that good D in us, you know what I'm saying? That good Louisiana good D. So today is on the eve of Mother's Day next weekend. And you see we dropped a little Risha song about motherhood and the connection to mother. Right? And it's important because, mother is God, right? And so you get these parables and they don't really make sense. And so I'm here to clear up some things. So I don't know if you've ever heard me say this, but the Garden of Eden is in the ocean. It's in the water. Your Garden of Eden was in your mother's womb. In the Garden of Eden, there is no need or necessity for anything. The Garden of Eden is perfect. It provides security, sustenance, environment, right? It provides this cul-de-sac for you. And one day, out of those 9 months, you get casted out and pushed into another world, a world that's harsh, that doesn't necessarily guarantee your safety, doesn't guarantee your sustenance, doesn't guarantee you affection. And so, understanding that, we realize that mother is the prospect of security, right? And nurturing. Okay. And so the song Warami is an epithet that comes out of the litmus of songs that go to Yemonja. And it's actually attached to an Odu that speaks about motherhood and the complications of motherhood in Odi Meiji. So di achama ruma chama dima imama yoko imama orisa o iba wa wesi wo geri kike. Tani lowo mi ada orisa. Warami mama yoko da. Warami iya yoko da. Sit me down on your lap and feed me. Because this is the most honorable or the most appreciative position to be in, is to breastfeed from my mother, right? And this is a very sensitive thing because, the first insult that somebody may bestow upon you is about your mother. You'll be like, your mama. You'll be like, what? You gonna curse my heaven? You gonna curse my Garden of Eden? Right? Now, this is not without the balance of divine masculine. God is the sum total of things, not the individual. So this misnomer of the divine feminine, that says that, what you're saying, that masculine isn't divine? That's not possible. This is the concept of the chicken and the egg. So they ask you which one came first. No, they came together. It's just when you want to find out when they decided to cooperate and the chicken go inside the egg and look as the egg as some sort of protection, right? Some sort of camouflage, right? So now we look at the concept of the ocean being the Garden of Eden. Nothing in the ocean is thirsty. Not too much in the ocean dies of hunger, right? But it's a brutal existence in the ocean. You have to defend yourself and have to figure out ways to defend yourself, albeit camouflage, defense, offense, or just, staying in your lane or on your tide. There's different levels to the ocean. So you stay at the part where the sharks ain't at. Okay. And this concept, so now when you come out of the water as a species, everything that comes out of the water has to return to the water. The insects, the birds, the mammals, human beings, everybody returns to look for some water. Once you come out of the water, you are always looking to return to it. And this concept is based on the idea so that we have different archetypes of mother, right? Mother is not one singular characterization. It is a series of things. And this is what makes it godly, because it's multifaceted. So when we look at the female Orisha, we find different types of mothers, right? And so the first mother that we take note of is Olokun, the deity of the ocean, of the abundance of the ocean, right? And Olokun is talking about the idea of just procreation and the means to procreate, right? And in doing so, in the procreation, there is a thing. One second. Yo, I can hear you. So, in the ocean, there's a lot of reproduction going on, but in the ocean, there is no nurturing. Outside of the whales, which are mammals who re-enter the water, nothing in the ocean is breastfed. The egg is laid, and you are on your own. In certain circumstances, you better get out the way of your parents because they might eat you. This is the nature and the characterization of Olokun and the stoicness of Olokun, right? That I'm not responsible for you. My creation and my contribution to your existence is just that. And I owe you nothing more. Right? And when we come out of the ocean, one of the first things that we come out of the ocean as is the serpent. Right? So the mudfish turns into the serpent. And the serpent lays eggs, much like the fish does. And all the other creatures that live in the ocean, they all lay eggs. And this is very important because albeit all of the living creatures, not vegetation, but creatures, come from out of an egg, including yourself. So this idea that everything in the ocean lays eggs, so now when it's coming out of the ocean, it continues to lay eggs. The serpent lays eggs. Now the serpent will be very attentive to the eggs, but once they hatch, they're on their own. There is no nurturing there. There's no culpability. It is said that the serpent coils the tree and begins to ascend. Right? This is why the serpent is used in matters of ascension. It's talking about the evolution of life and the idea that the serpent has the desire to get closer to the sun and to get off the ground. And so the serpent coils the tree. And then the serpent begins to travel from one tree to the other. And so you've ever seen that there are serpents and pythons that jump from one tree to the next. And they say that this evolution gave birth to the appendages, the arms and the legs, so that the serpent began to turn into a lizard. And one of those lizards that is revered is the chameleon. So that if you ever see a chameleon, he look like he's falling out the tree, but he's actually traveling because he gonna catch himself. And lizards lay eggs. Again, they are nurturing to the eggs, but once the eggs hatch, they're on their own. But then, eventually, through evolution, we say that the lizard transformed into a bird. And the evidence of that is that if you look at birds' feet, all birds' feet, they have webbed scales in their feet. Some of them are webbed, right? And they have these scales that look very close to being a reptile. Now, the bird lays eggs, but at some point, she goes and procures provisions for her young when they hatch. But at some point, she pushes her seedlings out of the nest. She kicks them out. You gotta go. And then we get to the mammal. And so the mammal lays eggs, but the eggs are not exposed. This is because the mammal understands the severity of its environment and that it's not safe to leave its eggs out. And so the eggs are internal. And this copulation takes place inside the womb, inside the human being, the woman. Right? It's not external. And this concept of now breastfeeding the young. So but the bird goes from consuming to regurgitating into the mouth of the child, and now this new invention, the breast is allowed to feed the child, right? Okay. And so we understand that this is a progression of motherhood. So we started out with Olokun, and they say that Yemonja is the perfection of Olokun and Yembo. And Yembo is Mother Nature, the need to procreate, right? The concept of procreation. And Olokun is the environment. And so when these two things come together, Yembo and Olokun come together, they make Yemonja, the perfect woman. That she is conscious of her higher self from the breast up and conscious of her lower self from the womb down. So from the womb down, it belongs to Olokun, right? So that they say when a woman is not at her best, she smells like fish. And this is a part of her connection to the ocean. So in this concept of divine feminine, we see this evolution of mothers, right? Now, we all have our mothers. And I had a mother. And my mother passed away. She's been gone for 20 plus years now. And my blessings come from her residual energy that is left, right? And my mother had Yemonja made. Now, she might not have been the best mother, but she was the best mother for me, right? And so she has some of the abrasiveness of Olokun. My mother taught me, you don't have to figure it out. So that there are some people who, if they stay too long in the nest, they become ruined because they don't learn how to fly, right? And it is the burden of the mother to try to figure out. So that in the Odu that talks about motherhood, OD, there is a conversation that says that at some point we take our children off the tit. And if we don't do this, we leave them to be handicapped because at some point they have to learn how to eat solid food. But every mother goes through this burden because when you take the baby off the tit or off the bottle, they scream. And they scream because they have lost safety, sustenance, affection, right? All of these things take place in the coddling of a child to the breast. They're eating, they're safe, they're having affection, they're feeling warm from the heartbeat of their mother. And then one day, she take them off the tit. And she does this because she understands that she would be doing her baby a disservice. And so she takes them off the tit because now they have teeth and now they bite the nipple. And at some point they need to learn how to consume solid food so that their stomachs are prepared so that they can live in this world like that. Excuse me. So in this evolution, we understand that there is a part where mother has to return to her abrasiveness in order for us to necessarily have our own, to be able to stand on our own. And so this idea that mother is God, yes, but not without the masculine, divine masculine part and the divine juvenile part. There is mother, father, child, and spirit. And spirit is the representation of the past and the future, right? So that the spirit may be the spirit of an ancestor or the spirit that may come to be, right? And this is the holy quadrant, not trinity, that exists within our tradition, okay? So that you'll hear all of this talk about, the divine feminine and all that. That is a distraction. These are tactics to create division. So that they tell you about divine feminine, but they don't tell you about divine masculine, right? And then they don't tell you about divine infancy or juveniles, right? Because there is a divineness about children, that they remind us of things and they remind us of the gift of life and the naivety that we all had at some point. And so, you can't speak on one without the other. And it would be an abomination on our part to allow people to do that. So it is not in good taste when talking about tradition do we necessarily single-mindedly keep ourselves on the divine feminine, right? And this mother thing, so like I said, the Garden of Eden is in your mother's womb. It was the perfect place, but you got cast out because you had to come out into this world, a more abrasive world, right? And this is important. So now, when we get to finding ourselves, we have to go and return back to our parents, to our mother particularly, right? Our father will give us our external understanding, right? How we are in the world. Our mother gives us our internal, our emotional, what affected us, what waves in this ocean that we were in affected us, right? And so you have to go back and you have to come to an understanding that at some point you have to forgive your parents for your expectations, right? Because you're expecting something posthumously, right? They have expectations of you in the future because you haven't showed up yet. But now you have expectations of something that they weren't a part of. And so you have to forgive them. And so it's very important that we understand. So now, this water that we all got to return back to goes back to a glass of water and a candle, right? Everybody that came out the ocean returns to the water to get something to drink. Remember that. So that you understand the concept of omnipotence and omnipresence, that God is all around you and you're in God. God's not in you, right? Because fish don't know that they're in water until they're out of water. But they need the water to survive. And so it's the same thing with you and God, right? You require, because if you're outside of God, then you don't exist, right? So this water being the eldest conduit of spiritual connectivity, this is why it is the most important, because it is most simple, right? The glass and its transparency allows us to see through things, right? It allows us that there is nothing hiding, there's nothing masking behind it. And this water, as we observe it, we will understand what is happening in our environment based on how the water is reacting, right? So that they say that water reacts to radiation and things of that nature. So understanding that, We give thanks to our mother because she is the source of our water. So even on a personal level, I can tell you I've dreamt more about my dead mother than I have of my dead father. She's way more connected to the water to me than my father is. I would associate my father with the fire in my composition, right? So that I've seen my father in dreams, very profound dreams, but not like I see my mother, right? And that's because the water is a universal conduit. Fire burns out. Water is forever. It just changes forms, right? That's the one thing about all of the other elements in regards to them, is that the only element that will change forms is water. Earth, you burn it, it just dissipates. It don't turn into nothing. Water, if you heat it up, it turns into vapor. If you freeze it, it'll turn into a solid. This is what gives water the supremacy, right? And so this is why Fela says, and I'm always, like I said, redundant, water has no enemy, because it will defeat everything over time. It will beat up on stone, metal, fire, whatever it is. And so we understand that the black matter in the universe is a form of water. At the bottom of the ocean, they've detected another source of water that is what they call heavy water, that is more dense. So that at the bottom of the ocean, there's another beach. So, earlier in one of my other classes, I talked about the fact that there are no aliens. There's no such thing. They keep telling you. So now we have evidence that NASA is a fraud. That all of the stuff that they do on NASA is all green screen. What they need green screen for if they're in space? And how was they talking on a walkie-talkie in 1960 something off the moon? And I can't get clear reception from Verizon. What are you talking about? Don't make no sense. So we understand that ain't no little green men coming out of the sky to come attack us. That is the guilt and the fear of the European in his conquest, that he fears that there's somebody that might be more vicious than him to take whatever he's taking. And so he imposes this fear upon us with this idea that there is another race coming here to dominate us. If there was another race, they would already be here. They would not, if they're that advanced in their concept of time, I'm pretty sure that they got to figuring out how to get here way before we understood what fire was. So let's just be very clear about that. So don't get caught up in those hysterias. Oh, the green people, oh, there's no aliens coming. And if they did, they wouldn't come on the tuna can. They would be able to snap their fingers, because I'm very sure that they would have a source of technology that would way surpass the idea of us shooting up into space in a rocket. So it's way more likely that we can enter into another dimension by way of the water, and the deeper that we go, right? And in the density of things, one needs to be more fluid. And so this talks about the men's the complexity of the carbon, in that it is a trap, so that we are here to experience this incarnation in the carbon state. And so what is at the bottom of the ocean is of no consequence to us. We don't really need to know, because we can go to other dimensions by other means. So, wada means, and wada actually means milk, right? But the concept of wada mean, so it says the milk me, give me milk. Iya, yoko da. Yoko da, she's sitting firm, right? So it's easier for her to breastfeed when she's sitting down, okay? And so this is a very profound concept. It says, because this is the beginnings of life. So then, in talking with my good friend Rashidi talk about the idea of the sucking of the breast is the first muscle that you use outside of your heart when you're a baby, right? You didn't even open your eyes yet, but you, right? And so this talks about the idea of pi, and the circle, the dot inside the circle being a representation of the breast and being sustenance, right? To keep us going. And so this milk, leche, awara, is important to the human existence, right? So that we have a conundrum within our own community. And Ibaye Tanuka, to the spirit of the good brother Dick Gregory, that he said he would pay $2 million to find out what the effects are of the white boy drinking the milk of our mothers from her breasts, and how that affected us and left us without the codes because they were given the codes through the DNA of the breast milk. All right. And so it is very important that we acknowledge these spiritual, I want to say, attacks. Okay? This was a spiritual attack. They understood this. It wasn't by convenience. They just didn't have black women feeding their babies out of convenience. Not when, at that time, in the antebellum South, they thought black people were filthy. So why would you let your newborn child suck from something that's filthy? And so this is the concept of the white woman proverbially, right, being the stepmother to the black man, because the black woman was the mother to the white man. And so this concept of motherhood is important, so that when you hear all this hoopla about Iyamin, right? Iyamin, so that it doesn't, they don't necessarily call them witches, call them mothers. And so the most powerful magician on the planet is mother, because she can produce milk to feed her babies. Understand that. She produces milk to feed her babies. This goes into the reason why feminine homosexuality is not frowned upon in the world. Because male or female, you suck from your mother's breast. And most likely, you took a shower with your mother, not your daddy. And so the female body means more than just sexuality to us. It means life. It means sustenance. So even for another woman, it is still her honoring the aspect of life. Okay? Now, man to man is about subjugation. We find this when there are no men available. When there are no women available. And particularly, you find this behavior cultivated on the high seas. Because women were traditionally not allowed to ride on ships. It was bad luck, they said. And so the pirates came up with a hedonistic custom of what they call a glory hole, where they draw straws. And they all put their thing through the hole, and whoever's on the other side is just the unlucky straw drawer. And from this comes the subjugation of another man to they begin to necessarily dress other men like women in order to satisfy their psychological perversion, so that they understood that they were still engaging with a woman. And so this is where this custom comes from. So now, even etymologically in Spanish, the word for homosexual that they used, or the epithet, is maricón. M-A-R is a reference to ocean. Maricón. So they're talking about people that come off the sea, or travelers, right? Because women are not the best travelers because women like to carry a lot of things. And it's just a really real realization of the nature of species. Things are acquired by women. Men are not attached nostalgically to things as much as women are, right? I mean, that's not to say that there aren't men that are, but that's usually a feminine characterization. So we understand that this idea of mother is very important, but not without the balance of divine masculine, not without the balance of the divine spirit and the divine child in this quadrant, because everything that is sacred within the corpus of indigenous or ancient philosophy has to do with the number 4. 4 is the perfect number. It is the square. It is never uneven. And so everything that we do in this tradition has to do with 4s. We have 4 special aches that they call aches, or medicines that we use in our initiations. Osun Obi Eru Kola. We have 4 colors in the painting of our initiations: white, red, blue, yellow. Right? We have 4 pieces of coconut that are used in divination, the first divination, which we call Obiagbon. Right? And so 4 is the perfect number. And so in this 4, you will find that it is complete. So that in the concept of Judeo-Christian stuff, where they be talking about the mother, the father, the mother, the son, and the Holy Spirit, that shit is not complete. It's imbalance. And we don't do anything in 3s because 3 is an imbalance, because it creates imbalance. Just think, if you have 3 people walking down the street trying to have a conversation, if the first 2 are engaged, the third person is excluded. It will create a different type of energy. Add another person to that group, now 2 people can talk and other 2 people can talk in an even situation. And this goes into the reason why the 4s are important. Now, Mother's Day. You don't have to like your mother, but you have to love her. It is a necessity. To receive the blessings of the universe, one must forgive their mother for whatever circumstances, because you signed up for it. Indigenous theology, especially Yoruba theology, says that we picked this life in heaven. And so we picked our parents knowing all of their trials and tribulations. And so when we get here, we must forgive them and honor them, especially mother. So there are a lot of people who have issues with mommy, who are not good with mommy. And to begin to fester this relationship, one must have to gain respect of their parents as they become an adult. And what that means is that you have to be willing to expose yourself to your parents first, because they knew you when you were naked. They knew you when you spit up on yourself, when you pissed and shit on yourself. So there should be nothing that would be that embarrassing that you shouldn't be able to share with your parents, because guess what? If they were really truly paying attention to you, whatever it is that you confess, they already saw it. And you come into this realization and into this truth, they will respect you. And in that, they will allow you to be who you are. Understand that. So, again, I'm redundant. I don't say no new shit. I say the same shit over and over again. I saw an interview recently, and I had to be Grandmaster Caz, that explained that the entire hip-hop culture is cap. And the reason for this is because you don't talk to your mother in hip-hop. You don't come in your house and be like, yo, what's up, my bed? Yo, my dude, let me get a sandwich, you know what I'm saying? Nah, that's not going to work. She's not fit to do that. Now, maybe these new generation, because the devolution of the society has gotten to that point, yeah, I'm pretty sure that there's a couple of moms that's like that. But when you come into your skin, when you accept who you are and the name that you've been given to you by your God, which is mother, because that's the only way that you will be qualified, is when you begin to accept your name. When you accept your name and your mother is there to acknowledge that, then you have come to an agreement with God in that regard, because this is who named you. This is who defined you. Your maker. So they know you better than anybody else. So the idea that you think that you can try to hide anything from them, you are fooling yourself. So in order to, because they said there's a thing with people will tell you, don't do this, right? And they may tell you that out of convenience. But if you're smart enough to investigate it and challenge them, they might not like it, but they will respect you. And this is a very important thing. And when you can accept your parents for their ignorances, their mistakes, you make it easier for you to accept your own and to be content with the outcome of your mistakes. So, to my own credit, my mama know who I am. God bless her. From the first time they come get me out of school for a fight, she's like, oh no, I know my son. Right? When I got older, my adolescence and teen years, I had to remind her. Every time she came to the precinct to come get me, she's like, oh, I don't know who he is. She accepted it. What made her godly and divine was that she took her hands off and allowed the divine to intervene. Right? She done her job. She necessarily procreated me. She was nurturing me. Got me to walking and talking and being able to decipher letters and numbers and all these different things. And then she allowed me to take my course and to be polished and to take form into what I am today. Right? She allowed that nucleus to rise. It's important. So now, a lot of us suffer from traumas from our parents, and these traumas are based on our experience, based on size. You're originally afraid of your mama because she whooped your ass so good that you couldn't do nothing, and you ain't never forgot that shit. You ain't never forgot that shit, right? And you respect that shit, like, man, she didn't kick my ass, but that was a long time ago. You didn't have the means to defend yourself, right? Okay. And I ain't telling you to put your hands up against your mom. I'm just saying you didn't have those means. So now what ends up happening is their judgment is attached to that ass whooping. So you be afraid to tell them, like, yo, man, I ain't really fucking with Jesus, man. That shit's cool, but I don't fuck with that shit. I got some other shit going on. And I still love you. And I'll come home and I'll let y'all niggas say y'all little prayers and all that, but just don't be hitting me in the head with that shit. Now, if they respect you, they be like, all right, you got it. And they won't fuck with you. But it's like a bully. They're going to always try to you. Like, let me see if I can punk this nigga. Because you came out of them. Right? It's just hierarchy. Like, you feel like, man, motherfucker, you don't tell me nothing. You came out my ass. Fuck you. So, they're going to try you. But they stop trying you once you establish yourself. Once you see, so when that bird, I kick the bird out the nest, he fall on another branch, you on your own, homie. But when I see him flying and catching other fucking things, snakes and shit like that, I be like, oh, I respect that nigga now. I ain't gonna get in his way. Because that's what respect really truly is. It has nothing to do. Respect is not about compassion or anything. Respect is about the fact that I understand equally For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So if there's a man and he weighs the same height and weight as me, and I smack him, there's a good chance he might return the smack back to me. Now, if I don't feel like getting smacked and rolling around in the grass with this motherfucker, I ain't fit to smack him. That's called respect. I acknowledge his power, or that the potential of his power is there. Anybody else, I show compassion for and etiquette. That's it. You smaller than me at any given time, understand, especially when you understand that, and this is something that for any women that's out there, I want you to understand that when you tell your man to go confront something, especially if it's another man, understand that you are sending him out to battle. Because as men, every time that we have an interaction, if this interaction goes wrong, this shit could become deadly. And so men, we use respect as a means so that we ain't got to be rolling around in the grass all the fucking time. Like, nah, I ain't fucking with son. He might punch me in my mouth. He might catch me out there. Ain't no reason for us to be going on some Mexican standoff. I'm gonna leave him alone. Right? And so when women understand that when you send your man out there and he's trying to be diplomatic, don't be talking to him, talking stupid, talking about, oh, use a punk. Oh, no. See, because women don't really understand. See, women have these fights, and they be cat fights, and they scratch each other, and they hit each other. But they ain't never really been in a situation where a motherfucker got hit so goddamn hard they hit the fucking pavement, and you didn't know if the person was still alive. Right? There's a thing in that. Like, oh, shit. Oh, this motherfucker might not get up. Right? And as men, we have witnessed that. Majority of us, not all of us, but majority of us have witnessed that. So we understand that shit can happen. And you see the biggest bull go down. You be like, oh, look at this big guy. And then some little guy come by and knock him on his face and he hit his head on the goddamn table and he's dead. You'd be like, things can happen. So we enter every conflict with the understanding that the end result could be death. Right? Women don't understand that. They get to rolling around in the grass and they'll do that shit all night. Right? With no resolve. No, men, we understand that death is the conclusion to confrontation. Okay? And so that one becomes a man because one understands how to keep the diplomacy so that we don't get into no gangster shit. You understand me? Okay. So, when it comes to mothers and parents, so when you want to get, so they talk about this shadow work and all that. That shit is based on your relationship with Mom Deuce. And you have to have, and understand, what you say affects them just like when you were a child and the shit that they said somehow affects you. Right? When you make a sense, a motherfucker got that necessarily at some point, or they just stupid, and you just gotta leave them be. But even with your parents, like, yo, man, I understand. I'm not trying to fuck with your shit. I'm not trying to tell you wrong. See, because that's the problem. Nobody wants to be told that they wrong. Especially somebody that shit you out. They're like, who the fuck is you to tell me something? I've been there longer than you. I get it. So you're not going to tell them that they're wrong. You're just going to tell them you got a different way. Like, you know what? Jesus don't work for me. But I respect that it works for you. And I hope that Jesus continues to work for you. Right? And so that you respect them, and so that they have a measure of respect for you. A lot of times, and especially in my generation, there is a resentment to a lot of the drug addict children and children who are overly corporally punished, that we begin to go to the extreme. So then you hear motherfuckers say some stupid shit like, oh, I ain't never gonna beat my kids. Okay. And now these little motherfuckers running around here drilling shit up because they don't have no consequences. Because you went from the extreme of not respecting the fact that your ass needed to be beat. See, a real nigga would tell you, like, yeah, I did some shit and they needed to kick my ass because I was out of control. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Them hormones was pumping in my blood. I was on crack. Right? When you start trying to make sense of your childhood and try and make it seem like everybody else was stupid and you was the only smart one, there's something wrong with you. Right? And so when you hear people say it, so then you hear stupid shit like, oh, my kids ain't gonna never want for nothing. And now you spoil them, and now this motherfucker standing over your bed with a fucking axe ready to cut your head off, talking about, pay my credit card bill. You did that. because you went from one extreme to the next, right? And that's what's been happening in the last generation. So the baby boomers, they wanted, oh, my parents are so strict and gave me Jesus Christ and we ain't doing that shit. And they're just going to let the kids grow like grass, right? Then the grass get motherfucking thick. And then now there's serpents in the grass. And now you don't want to deal with that. So this Mother's Day, I want us to have some resolve, man, to our parents. You know what I mean? We didn't get caught up in the crack thing. That shit wasn't our scourge. And so we have to have some empathy and some sympathy for those who did get caught up in that scourge, because it was that. You know what I mean? The world changed after that shit. The world changed after they brought heroin to the people. The world changed. The world changed when people, you know what I'm saying, made alcohol a priority. The world changed, and not for the good. But we also have to be very empathetic and understand and put ourselves in those shoes. So anybody that's parents got high on crack and you hating them, well, if you smoke weed or you take a drink of Casamigos, it's the same thing. They didn't know at the time that this was going to be the destruction of their community. They was trying to get the stress off. They smoked that shit and the shit got you. And now motherfuckers is fucked up. Oh well. You have to give them some resolve for that, some resignation. You can't be holding on, I hate them motherfuckers because of this, that, and the third. That shit is wrong, it's selfish, and who the fuck are you? You heard? Because unless you got the codes to fucking cure cancer, you should shut the fuck up. Back to that water. Everybody that came out the water is always searching for the water. Right? So I'm gonna look at these comments because I don't know what the fuck anybody is up here talking about. Let me see. I make the food sound good as hell.
What about my mama's list?
Hold on, I'm gonna start reading these comments. Okay. Let's see. You out the water, but the water never comes out of you. You ain't never lied, cuzzo. Let's see. What is my take on orphans who was despised and abandoned by their mothers due to the issues with the father? Well, you know, so you know, I go around the block before I come back to the front of the yard. So, conceptually, so we say God is the water, right? And we're in the water. We're the fish in the water. And then there's currents that send you a certain way, that influence you. They don't make you go that way, but they influence you. There's whirlpools, right? All these different phenomena in the direction of things. And the resignation comes in when one comes to the understanding that nothing is by happenstance, nothing is by mistake. And there are phenomena that cannot be explained. So I like to go into the most profound, one of the most profound stories that I've ever heard. That was very very heartwarming to me. Is the story of the comedian Tommy Davidson. And you can go look this up on YouTube. He talks very openly about it, but when he was a baby, his mother left him in a garbage can. And a white woman who was a social worker exiting the building of the where the garbage was in front of, heard the baby crying in the garbage can on a snowy day. And she took this little black baby home with her. And over time, she adopted him. And he didn't know that he was black. He says that he thought, like how dogs have different puppies in the litter and they all come out different colors, he thought he was just a different color. And later on, he talks about how his mom got clean and got herself together, and she became a foster mother. And she came to one of his shows, and his wife was being indignant, like, yo, how could you allow her to be here? And he was like, yo, you don't understand. My life wouldn't be what it is today if she had not put me in that garbage can. Now, we have to think about the divine intervention in that there may have been something that she either heard, saw, or felt, or intuitively was trying to convince her to put her baby in a garbage can on a snowy day, and that it would be okay. And she did that with the greatest of faith. Now, we wouldn't know who he is as Tommy Davidson today if that white woman had not raised him. And the paying forward of it is the fact that in her absence of being a mother to him, she learned how to be a mother to other children who didn't have a mother. And that is godly. Right? And so when you despise your creation, albeit from rape, or somebody got you injected with a turkey baster, the act happened and you got here. Because as the great, and I say he's great, as the great scientist Neil Tyson deGrasse, or whatever his names go together, he says if you think about the odds of how many sperm even get ejaculated, and the odds that just one inseminates the egg, and then that egg goes through a gestation period that's very, very precarious. For every other sperm cell that got ejaculated someplace else, the odds of you being here are very slim. So it's not about the journey, it's about the destination. You got here. Thank the Lord. Thank mama, thank daddy. Even if they had sex on what we call Pebble Beach, on the roof of the projects, the ability, the free will to ejaculate in her, and her allow him to ejaculate in her, for her to be impregnated and decide to keep that baby, is divine within itself. And so we have to shed our emotional baggage when we become consciously intelligent. Like, you gotta let that go, because that shit don't serve you, right? And it's not in the flow of things, because the river is gonna keep running. It ain't got nothing to do with. We don't give a fuck about that rock. If that rock got pushed out the river and didn't get polished, that's on the rock. The river gonna continue to run. And so you have to stop with this idea that you are the only thing that exists in this universe, and this shit is all catering to you, and think more about you playing your part in it, right? So when it comes to orphans and things of that nature, it's unfortunate, but we necessarily require some struggle and some obstacle in this world in order to appreciate it. So yeah, I don't, those people who are who come from those circumstances, again, they would consider themselves to be special in that regard. That they have a special mission of information collection that is unique to them. You know what I mean? What if Jesus works for me, but not solely or as pedagogically? Well, I didn't say Jesus didn't work. I say the form of Jesus that people worship, it don't work. Right? Symbolism is very important. And this has to do with even in Orisha aesthetics. So just to drop a drop in the bucket. So if any one of you have ever gone or has any connection or relationship to what goes on in terms of Orisha traditions in Yoruba land, you will see that Ogun is a sign with red, the color red. In the Lukumi system, they do not. Because red is a symbol of the fragility of iron. When iron is rusty and brittle, it's red. And Ogun is about strength. So to put him in red would be to symbolize him being some sort of having some weakness. And so instead they decided to use the color purple as a representation of the color red. As blood dries, it turns maroon or purple, and Ogun bathes in blood. Or green, because of the understanding that chlorophyll and the fluorofauna demagnetize things. So if you're a blacksmith and you work on iron all day, you're magnetized, and so only the chlorophyll in the forest and brushing against the leaves will help demagnetize you, and so the color green becomes important to him. Now, I say all that to say Jesus is great, but if you got Jesus on the cross and this nigga got nails in his hands and in his feet, and you asking the nigga for something, he can't help you. Because symbolically, he's fucked up. And he's in a fucking situation. Now, if you worshiping Jesus and he got the cup in his hand, he got the chalice, he's drinking some Hennessy, he got the stick in the other, he got a sword, and he got his cape and his crown, yeah, get with it. I ain't mad. Right? But, and so this is why the Jesus that they give us don't work. Because the nigga's nailed to a cross. He can't scratch his own nuts. So what you asking that nigga for help for? Yeah. Can I end with the Yemaya Padiki? Okay. I'm going to think about a Yemaya Padiki that's most profound, that shows Yema and Jah's compassion. Because Yemonja is one of those Orishas that she's like when I say this. So there's like 5 main Orishas to most Padikis. And we're not talking about Ifa. Because in Ifa, Orunmila does everything. The nigga is the fucking candlestick maker, the butcher, the baker. He's every fucking thing, right? I don't get into that. And then they done turn the nigga into Superman and Jesus real quick. I don't get into that. Now, when you're talking about Orisha Padiki, there's usually 5 Orisha that are kind of like irreplaceable to most of the stories. And the first one is Legba. He's in probably every story, because at some point he's walking through and he got some fucking input to something, right? The next one will be Obatala, right? And Yemonja, Oshun, and Shango. One of these 5 Orishas is usually situated in the story, because these Orishas have connections to all the other Orishas, right? But Elegua is one that you'll find him in most stories. Yemonja is the same way. She will be in the story. She might not have too much to do with it, but she'd be involved in it. She got some part to play in it, right? But I will tell you a story. So this one is about Shango and Yemonja. So, if you go to an Orisha house, or there's an Orisha functioning going on in Lukumi, let me be very clear. I don't profess anything about Isese other than their whatever connections they make, or you know what I mean, misrepresentations that they make. But I don't have nothing to do with that. Okay, but in Lukumi, if you go to a house, you may find bananas hung above the door. And there's a story that talks about Shango was very consumptuous, very greedy. And one day, he ate all of the neighbor's bananas in his banana plantation. But there was a set of bananas that he could not reach. He's too short and he couldn't grab them. So he came home and he had a tantrum to Yemonja. Oh, I can't get the bananas. Oh, I'm so hungry, right? So Yemonja, being his mother, she says, all right, come on, let's go. So she grabs him by the hand, she takes him out. And they find the tree with the bananas, and she lets him get on her back. And she plants her feet. Now, Yemonja got these big feet. They refer to her as a hippopotamus, right? Which is the elephant of the river, Odo, right? Erin Odo, or Odo Erin. So, She plants her feet, and Shango climbs on the back, and he gets on the back, and he gets the bananas. Takes the bananas and go home and eat the bananas. He has a great time. He don't offer none to Yemunja. The next day, the farmer come out, the neighbor come out, he see all his bananas gone. He like, that goddamn Shango, I know he ate my bananas. So he go and get the cops. He go get the police. They bring her, they knock on the door. They lock Shango up. We say, what you locking me up for? They say, oh, you've been eating all my bananas. So they take him back to the scene of the crime. And they see these 2 footprints. And Shango says, I didn't take those bananas. And they was like, well, we got the footprints. And so Shango said, but that ain't me. And so he puts his feet in the footprints, and his feet are too small. And the police say, well, whose feet could fit this? And he says, I don't know, maybe Yemaya. And the police go to Yemaya house to go lock Yemaya out. When they get there, Yemaya's like, what the fuck are y'all talking about? They said, well, you know, your footprints is in the ground. She said, listen, I ain't got nothing to do with that. I don't even eat bananas. So what are you talking about? They're like, right? And so they let Yemunja go. But as a punishment to Shango, she said, all the people in the town, tie your bananas up high so Shango can't get them no more. And so we put the bananas in the house up high, right? So that Shango doesn't trick us. And we do this to understand a certain amount of humility so that we don't take more than we're supposed to, and we don't become greedy. And there's a dance that when Shango is possessed, they sing a song about him and his bananas and him putting his feet in the footprints of Yemunja and not being guilty. So they sing, for my okete, for my ebo, Shango for my ebo, for my ogede, for my ebo. Obegede is what they call bananas or plantains, or they'll call it ogede. And so for my ogede, for my ebo, and Shango dances, he moves forward, and then he moves back because he's putting his feet inside the footprints and taking them back out to show his innocence. Right? And Yemunja got blamed on that rap. Trying to think of some more Yemunja apatikis. Because she's very, very integral. She is the her and Obatala. So the Shango is great. My friend, my guardian angel, my Orisha. Oya is one of my favorite Orishas, but Yemunja and Obatala are the stable pillars of this tradition because they say that life was born because of water and salt, right? And they say that the water came to this planet in asteroids of salt. And so Obatala representing the salt and Yemunja the water, and this salt water being the saline that eventually gives birth to the amino acids and things of that nature that give birth to life. We consider Obatala and Yemunja to be the model father and mother to the world. Not necessarily the eldest, but the model mother and father archetypes of the world. For Obatala for his wisdom and patience, and Yemaya for her discernment and relentlessness. Right? It's the relentlessness of a mother that she will never give up on her child. Right? If you ever see animals in the wild, they be like, the mother be standing there while the fucking hyena is ripping her baby apart. Because she's relentless. Like, I gotta try to salvage life. And this is why we do not put the women in engagement of committing the act of sacrifice, because they are integral into the participation of life, right? When am I on the next time I'm on Urban X? It gotta probably be the next time I'm in New York. That's the only platform outside of my own thing that I even speak on. And the reason being is that I don't your conscious community has been co-opted by the government and capitalism. There's too many things going on and too many people popping up that don't have any their boots wasn't on the ground. Like I wasn't on the boots on the ground in the conscious community. Like, not the one that is present today. I wasn't on the boots, but during that entire time, I was studying in Orisha houses and going from the Bronx to Brooklyn and Staten Island and there's different places studying to be a priest. And so that's when my boots was on the ground. But there's a lot of these new guys that they show up and they're talking a lot of jargon and the shit don't make no sense. And they're trying to remix shit. So that you gotta be careful because a lot of this shit that I say to y'all, like, it's timestamped. You could go back 10 years and you'll hear the conversation and it's still relative to what I'm talking about today. It might just have expounded a little bit, become a little bit more mature or less aggressive. Because there was a time that I was aggressive and I still am aggressive. But that's just me, and you could call it toxic, whatever, masculinity. That's just my masculinity. It was given to me by my mother and my father and cultivated by my family members. So at the end of the day, I'm going to continue to be the way I am because that's who I am. But yeah, Urban X is the only place that I trust. I really do appreciate Black Dot and Malcolm. If you were to ask me, they are like the only really black news that, you know, like if you had to say like, oh, well, there's a channel, a black news channel, I would say Urban X TV. They have a unbiased standpoint about black affairs, from the mundane to the very esoteric and important issues of our community. Brother Rich, I do not respect him. I think he is an opportunist. This is only because he makes his money off of YouTube. He figured out a way to, when he stopped selling his DVDs in the street downtown Brooklyn, he figured out another way to make some money and to walk the fence. So when you see him and he has these dudes up there and they're talking about the Anunnaki and all that shit, I don't respect him because how could you have come from Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark and now you entertaining this bullshit? I don't get it. I have a problem with the dudes that be running around here with these monikers. They be telling you that they this and that and they're 33 degrees and all that shit. I'm not fucking with you. I don't trust you. I don't know where you came from. Because I want to tell y'all, I don't particularly whore myself out, right? And I be wondering how some of these dudes, how they pay their bills. Because you ain't never at work. You always on live or doing somebody's fucking lecture. So how the fuck you pay your bills? And these niggas don't pay nobody nothing. In the black conscious circuit, you be lucky if niggas give you a plate of food. Like, they gonna give you some crystals or some shit, but you ain't coming out of there with no money. So I don't understand how these niggas pay their bills and their child supports and all that kind of shit, because all these niggas is fucking deadbeat dads. So how they pay their bills, and then how do you do that? Somebody got to be paying you. So that might be some kind of fund that come out of some sort of 3-letter alphabet fucking organization as far as I'm concerned. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just saying. My daddy told me a long time ago to leave them fucking Black Power niggas alone, cause them niggas will always set you up talking about let's go blow up a bridge or some stupid shit. And so I just finished watching the Carbon Nation with Nature Boy shit, and that shit used to be on Sinetta. They used to be promoting that bullshit. There gotta be some accountability, right? So at this point, I don't even associate myself with that shit. This is why I've taken off the moniker of the brother part. And the brother Oba part is to soften up the people, because, you know, I just didn't want to come with the Oba shit and they'd be like, oh, you know what I'm saying? So I came with the brother Oba, and the brother suffix is there prefix is there to necessarily ease you into me necessarily dropping this information. But I don't associate with those fools. And I don't associate with my own community, because YouTube done turned that shit into a circus with the David I got used and this one from that one from Cuba. And some of these dudes, like I said, I've been to Cuba and you can tell me all that Cuban shit, but not all Cubans just be doing some ultra. That shit is the truth. And not all of them know what the fuck they talking about. Okay? And so, you know, be careful of niggas from the Bronx putting on Adidas suits telling you that they was at the beginning of hip-hop. Just because you live in the Bronx don't mean that you was with Kool Herc, motherfucker. Fuck out of here. You heard? Any words on the King of the United Kingdom's coronation? Anything helpful? Insight? Oh, well.
Roman gods on the chariot.
Huh?
Roman gods on the chariot.
Well, you have to really respect the fact that that cult comes out of Africa. Their aristocracy, their royalty was sanctioned by the leopard cult. Their coronation is calibrated for them in their society and their rights. I would be a fool to sit here and try to delegitimize it or even try to turn it into some dark Aleister Crowley shit. I don't really, you know what I mean? My mother told me that that Elizabeth's crowning was very eye-opening in terms of the ritualistic things that they perform in the preparation of a new installed monarch, which is very close to some of the things that we perform in ritual when we get our initiation in the Lukumi Kadiocha ceremony. So I do think that it is a time of change because we are going from the time of a queen to a king. And what's interesting, shout out to my wife, because she went and did the research. Queen actually refers to a whore. Not even it's a whore. Like if you go and look up the old English dictionary words for the word queen, it refers to a fucking whore. Right? So we had to necessarily divorce ourselves of their vernacular and their lexicon at some point. And to really truly understand the language and the cultural nuances that go with the language, and not to really be to be extractive, meaning that we come and just take the minerals or take the culture and keep it running. That I don't necessarily agree with. So, like I said, it's very important that we acknowledge that, yeah, there's a king. I mean, he grew up in royalty. I can't deny him that. You know what I mean? Well, the thing about it is, James, I ain't gonna hold you. The hip hop thing is it's an elitist group now. They don't. The entire story that they give you is very, very crafted, and it serves to only serve those people who they feel to be popular and who they felt to be in the loop of things. So not. Well, no, I'm lying. There was a production in motion for a documentary on my best friend and his mural, and they were going to do this new technology where you hit the barcode, and then you get to see the documentary to hear the stories about the person that you see on the wall, and they were going to do this throughout Brooklyn. The guy that did the interview for me is very, very famous photographer. His name is Sean Peasy, and he did some interviews with me in my neighborhood. This is a few years ago. Man, it had been like 5 or 6 years ago. And after that, no. But what happens is you get this Memorex conversation, right? About you get this memory, so like everything it gets watered down into a very so that like even the beginnings of hip hop, they kind of like left some dudes out. There was a lot of DJs that influenced Herc that they don't get the credit for. You know what I mean? Because they don't have advocates to speak up for them, right? Then you get like the dudes like Tariq Nasheed talking about, like, oh, this is FBA, ADOS, the South created hip hop. No, they didn't. If niggas in New York didn't have the circumstances that they were under, this hip hop music would have never came about. That's number one. Number two, the niggas in the South would be continuing to be listening to Juke Joint, music and the blues. And that ain't no fucking bullshit. Cause I've been in the South and I done been in some fucking juke joints where young niggas that was supposed to been lit was up in there singing to some old fucking BB King shit. Cause their mamas and them grew up listening to that shit. So if it wasn't for hip hop, we kind of like modernized a lot of the world with our slang, with our way of thinking, which was a way of thinking that was based on the post-apocalyptic situation that New York was in at the time. And so for them to say like it was an amalgamation, Puerto Ricans did contribute to this. West Indians did contribute to this. Jews contribute. Jews control this motherfucker. So don't just say that black people made it up. Like that's a misnomer. And that becomes this. It becomes is as ignorant as the KKK with some of that rhetoric. Oh, the black man built this. The black man did that. And the black man did you know the cherry is really black? It'd be like, yo, my nigga, like you sound like a KKK nigga. Like at this point, you just sound like you fucking spitting propaganda. Right? And so when these dudes start talking about hip hop, they always got a skewed thing because what they're not telling you is that some of these niggas is co-opted and the music is really a fucking plant. A lot of these dudes, their beginnings, they don't make sense. You'd be like, where the fuck does this? How the fuck did Prodigy have a song out before Mobb Deep and Havoc wrote the fucking rhymes for the first album? How the fuck did that work? That's a riddle. If his partner wrote the first album, how the fuck he had a single on a Boyz II Men soundtrack before that? He didn't know how to rap. That should go over people's heads, but I'm a little bit too conspiracy for that. Right? And you know how I feel about Mr. Shakur. I don't want nobody shooting me on some swarm shit because they got a bald head and fucking nose ring and they think that this nigga returned is coming to shoot me or some stupid shit. I ain't got time for that. So, maybe in the future we'll be able to necessarily tell a story that's real. Even the fashion story is fucking wrong. Like these niggas had you thinking that niggas was always wearing polo. Like that wasn't the thing. Like I was there for the AJs and the Vascos and the Playboys and the Ocean Pacific and the Gabardines and the Gant, all that kind of shit. Like, them motherfuckers don't know about that shit. And the reality is that they tell you these fucking, like I said, they like these broad sound bites. Oh, the Harlem niggas are the flyers. No, they're not. There's not a fucking department store in Harlem. Never been. 125th Street has always strictly been Jewish sneaker stores and clothing stores. Ain't never been no department store up there. Not since maybe in the 40s. I don't even know if then it was one. I know in my time it was never a department store in Harlem. Harlem niggas wore Dapper Dan Taylor shit from around their way, or they got their shit from 125th Street, and that's why they are known for wearing a lot of sweatsuits and things of that nature, because that's what they sold in those places, in those sporting goods places. Right? So maybe like, oh, the Harlem niggas. No, they're not. The niggas from Brooklyn, and traditionally in Brooklyn, we have a lot of department stores. Century 21, Sears, A&S, Macy's. We're exposed to the labels and things of that nature. They were not. And a lot of Harlem is very country bumpkinish. A lot of them are fresh from the South, so they don't really have anything to contribute. That's just the reality of it. But, that's another conversation. Can you speak on Eshu Yangi? It says it, but you haven't looked at what's Eshu Yangi's particular function. Well, first of all, you have to understand that Yangi stone is a meteorite, and so they use it because they acknowledge its cosmic origins, right? And so it's this Eshu that's made from this laterite stone, particularly. Now we have it in Lukumi. If somebody is able to get a hold of a Yangi stone, they may build an Eshu Yangi. I actually have one. Now, in terms of the different So the particular avatars of Orisha that come out of Africa are very, very hard to categorize in that regard because they do not have a codification like they do in Lukumi. And the reason they have a codification in Lukumi is because you have a group of Yorubas that at one point didn't see things all the same way. And so they had to come collectively and come to a collective consciousness and the codification and compartmentalization of things that they had to agree on. Like, oh, okay, this road of Yemaya takes these colors, and they all agree upon that. As opposed to when in Ishese, they really haven't gotten it together yet because from town to town, they still be practicing some different Orisha shit, if they still even practicing it at all. Because Ifa has decimated the Orisha cult in Nigeria because the Orisha cult has no way of proliferating money to survive because they have nothing to sell. And so Ifa, because they write books and they can come and do, they got the microwave ceremonies and they're going to give you shit in a day and give you some shit they can put together with their little blood and their feathers and they breathe on and put those on and then send you on out. All Orisha doesn't have those means to solicit like that. And so at that point, we don't, in terms of what I know a lot of stuff about Nigerian culture because prior to having a true understanding on Lukumi, that was the only source of information that Black American English speakers had at a long time. So I'm very well versed in what goes on in terms of the concepts of Yoruba or Isheshe, what they call it, because Isheshe is an invention. That shit didn't exist before 20 years ago. Then you can look it up. There ain't no book where like, oh, and this tradition is called Isheshe. That's some shit that they made up. And that is what makes it so very ingenuous and unhonorable about them is that they would try to sell us something after they left us neglected for so long because they never put it, there's no accounts of them putting the shit together and coming to get us. So with that being said, it's not that I have contempt for them, it's just that you can't sell me a 6 for a 9. I know the difference. Feel me? But I've been on here about an hour and a half. I'm getting white in the corners of my mouth. I'm running my mouth too much. And I gotta get ready to go to do this misa for my godchildren. Mother's Day. I hope you guys embrace the song. Click it, when you're in the house and you got nothing to listen to, go on YouTube. You know what I mean? Look up the Artist Bones, go look up the What I Mean so we can get some views so we can make this thing go viral because it's a song that we ain't shaking ass and we ain't selling drugs and, spinning the block. We just singing something to honor. And, I'm very critical. So I don't be like, when niggas get to trying to sing Orisha songs, I'll be like, nah, chill. But this was done very tastefully and it has a message and it's catchy. So I ask you all for your support.
You can tell them like we wrote
You know what I mean?
You wrote it.
Yeah, but we need your support. And we need you to make this thing one of those world songs that, that it just crosses lines because it's like Mama Say, Mama Sa, Mamakusa. Motherfuckers didn't know what they were saying, but they were sure enough saying it. So we need the world to get to what I mean so we could change the frequency, and that only helps with you. So don't let the haters be like, oh, them niggas like, nah, it's not about that, man. Because the one thing that I'll tell y'all is that I do these interactions and write these books so I don't have to be ingenuous and to maintain my integrity. I don't sell ultra. And I necessarily do my very best to try to maintain some sort of etiquette and manners to what I'm doing. And, I write these books so that it will be able to support me so that I won't have to necessarily be looking to use somebody to pay my rent. Number one. Or number two, like I said, I don't want to have to sell nobody nothing that they don't need. And so I'm asking you all to, to support the movement. We never did, cause like, I ain't coming out to trying to rap, cause these niggas all got like an end game with them, right? So they be selling you consciousness, and then the next week these niggas in the rap song, I was driven the drill with the Osiris and the Myris and you be like, oh shit, the fuck, right? Chief Yuya, that nigga was talking all that cash shit to me. Now that nigga is up there stringing his guitar, singing Funga Lafia, Ashe, Ashe. Nigga, I learned that song when I was like 3. The fuck is he talking about? These niggas is crazy. So all these niggas be having delusions of grandeur. Right? Niggas all think that they Jay-Z with the conscience, with the red, black, and green shit, right? Whatever. I ain't did that to y'all. Feel me? This is my wife. She's a singer. This is something that she wanted to do for Mother's Day from a few years back. This song was written, for my mother. And, she came up with the song. It's very catchy. And it's a high frequency, emanation. So we want to share that with the world. So we asking y'all, help support that and shit. You know what I mean? What's going on here? Oh, yeah. No. Oh, well, you said no. Listen, so let me tell you something. So I'm going to tell you the history of Isheshe real quick. Right? And this is not to denigrate them or anything like that. But there wasn't an Isheshe. So what happened was, you have there in our community, there is an unspoken war between those people who have heavy Africanoid phenotypes and those who have diasporic phenotypes. And what I mean by that is that there's a group of black people that have a very exotic Indian look to them. And then you have people who look traditionally like they might have just came out of Africa. And those people suffer a trauma. If you grew up in the 70s and 80s and niggas was like you was the African booty scratcher and all that shit, motherfuckers you don't want to hear that shit. So what happens is that there's a contempt that they felt coming from a very Latina X perspective of Lukumi, when Santeria came here, that they would make black people feel uncomfortable. So that these black people was like, you know what? This is really from Africa, and they went over there. And to their disappointment, it wasn't as organized as the thing that they had gotten from the Cubans. Right? So they go to Africa and they get welcome. Oh, they sing the song. They buy the food. They kill a couple goats. Everybody eat. It's great. Then they come home. Now you got to pay for the phone cards. And them niggas over there like, send money so we can kill a goat for you. Oh, okay. And instead of those people saying, nah, I did that, but nah, don't do that shit, son. They let other niggas run right into that river. Because shit rolls downhill and people don't have a fucking integrity about them. So what happens is all those people that went over there, when they came back, they came to the Lukumi, and it's just like lodges. If you was in Scottish Rites and I'm Prince Hall, I don't expect you to let me in your lodge to see your secret books. Because I ain't in your lodge. Well, the people that went and got Isheshe, but at the time, because at that time it wasn't Isheshe, they just called it traditional. Those people that got traditional, when they came back and they wanted to go on the Lukumi ceremonies, the Lukumi's like, nah, homie, you didn't do 372 days in white, so no, you can't come in here. And then they get into this argument. Oh, well, the religion comes from Africa. And then that becomes their stance. And they stay there. And so more and more people started to try to circumvent this Lukumi thing by going to Africa, coming back. Now, they don't have no system. They don't have no songs. They don't have no dance. They don't have no real rituals. Because everything ritualistic for them back home is just cultural. Like, oh, it is O'Shea. You know what I mean? It's O'Shea Shango today. And so them niggas get to making that boat of Shango. You don't have that luxury. So Niggas start to going over there and coming back, and what happens is they start complaining to their godparents over there. Oh, I don't learn nothing. You don't teach. Oh, they read the book. Okay. So now they all start to gather amongst each other, just like marauders do. And they start to be like, yo, we got this issue. So the Nigerian niggas come up with this idea. Alright. So they tell the niggas in the Orisha shrines, because the people in the Orisha shrines they're not like out and about. They in the shrine. They say, listen, you niggas want to eat, we gonna bring the money. But you gonna shut the fuck up and let us do our Ifa thing. Now, how I know this is because my mother's godfather, Lloyd Weaver, Olosumi Ibae Tanu, who died with like almost 50 years of Yemoja, said that in Nigeria, them motherfuckers didn't know what the fuck was going on, right? So, they begin to necessarily create this thing called Isheshe. If you look up the word Ishe or Iche, is a word that derives from work. Isese. So the word sese means to work, right? And so when they put the E in front of it, it denotes that it has something to do esoterically, something powerful or holy. So it becomes Isheshe. And they create this moniker so that these people have something to grasp onto. But the bullshit is that the Isheshe niggas come back to the States, and where do they go? To the Afro-Cuban fucking Lukumi dance class, the Afro-Cuban Lukumi drum class, right? And then they start to dress their Orishas like Afro-Cubans, and be like, well, why didn't you just go get Lukumi? And it's the same reason why most black American men would rather go to Ifa than to make Ocha, because they don't want to salute nobody because they have no fucking humility. Because they've been told that they were God, and them niggas bought that shit hook, line, and sinker. And so you can't tell none of these niggas nothing because they're fucking God. But they can't get themselves out of a wet fucking paper bag with instructions typed to their fucking eyelids. So you be like, what is this all about? So I don't say nothing because I become a hater. Meanwhile, can't none of these niggas stand in the fucking debate the box with me. I'll chew them up, spin them out, and suck them back up and shit them out again. But they don't want that. So I stay in my lane. I make the books to help you guys to go open it. Oh no, you can't open the door for Tone. You're not dressed. And so those are the guys that create the dissension, right? If you were born in the New World, you don't have no business going to Yoruba land because ain't no Yorubas ever gave black people no fucking Ocha. If you were born here in the diaspora, albeit the Caribbean or any place else, you don't got no business going to Nigeria to get no Ocha because guess what? You are denying the sacrifices and the trials and tribulations of the people who maintain this tradition under such harsh circumstances. So why did they maintain it for you to go back to Nigeria? What would that be for? Then they did that in vain. You understand that? So, with that being said, I'm going to log off, and because I gotta get ready to go to this misa, right? That's right, my name James said I'm good with Cuba. You already know, because that's the only country that came to Africa to fight for Africa. Remember that. When they got all this skeeter about Cuba, I want you to remember that no other country, not the United States, not Barbados, not Jamaica, not Trinidad, not Haiti, not fucking Libya, not South Africa, Nigeria, nobody came to the aid of the Congo but the fucking Cubans. So when you niggas start talking, read a book first, go to some history classes, and Pat, if you fail history from public school on, we ain't got nothing to talk about. If you don't know what the Boston Tea Party is, we ain't got shit to talk about. If you don't understand the three branches of government, we don't have nothing to talk about. And if you figured that out in your 20s, we don't got nothing to talk about. So, understand that I love Africa, but I'm not from Africa. Africa is a part of my being. It's a part of the contribution to who I am. Absolutely. But I don't have no real estate there. And I leave that for them to figure out. Because I got real estate here. Because I'm born here. My mama was born here. My daddy was born here. My grandmother was born here. My grandfather and my great-grandfather. So those people, I owe them to do the work here. Because like I said, and it's no disrespect to Africa, but they ain't sending a ship to come get me. And I would be a fool to think that now that they got a pie, that they're going to split that pie with me. I'm cool. So I give them all the respect. Because one thing I will tell you, it doesn't matter what the Orisha look like. If I found out the Orisha was blonde hair and blue eyes, I still gonna worship Shango. I don't give a fuck. But I know that my God lives in the stone. So I don't argue about what color is or what race he is or what ethnicity or what side of Africa he came from. It doesn't matter to me because my God lives in the stone. And stones live everywhere. So until you come to that understanding, we had nothing to talk about. So again, you honor God, heaven, and the Garden of Eden every time you drink some water, every time you place some water and give honor to it. And so when you dedicate that honor to your ancestors, to specifically your mother's spirit if she's not here, or your grandmother's spirit if she's not here, or grandfather or daddy, whoever, when you dedicate the most sacred element in the universe to them, you are doing something esoterically. And so like I've been telling y'all, a glass of water and a candle will save your life. This Obade Dio, a Paddocky Theater, brought to you by Omidina Productions. You know what I mean? Happy May. You know what I mean? Mayflowers. You know what I'm saying? And I'll see y'all soon.